I have felt that my experience with the church in particular hasn't gotten a lot of exposure. No one was out there telling this shit about the church, and it needed to be said. I believe myself. And I know a lot of people who've been abused and have lost the memories and then recalled or found them again. They don't trust their own memories. And certainly the whole picture came very slowly. And I did question every little bit and piece. One of my earliest memories of sexual abuse was actually not a positive experience, but I experienced it at the time as affection because it wasn't painful. And I was receiving touch from my father. And to me, that was a good thing. And so one of the one of the horrible things about some sexual abuse is that, if it involves someone you love and you trust, uh, what do you do with those feelings? You have mixed feelings about it. When the abuse was more significantly painful and scary, uh, the feelings, yeah, just feeling like your whole life is no longer safe. My
Mm.
home, my church, my school, it all involved the Catholic Church and abusive people. So that was the deepest, darkest moment of my life, I guess, around that time. My sister denied that anything bad could have happened to me because she lived in that family too, and nothing had happened to her. So I was full of crap. And people don't realize that five siblings in the same environment, the same family, they each have a very, very different experience of life. She didn't have that sense. If she didn't experience it, it didn't happen. So she claimed that I was making it up, and she said I was trying to kill my parents by bringing this up and asking them to, answer questions about the possibility of abuse. And so that went on for a while. And that was horrible. And then one of my siblings came forward, one that she's close to and I'm close to, and he said, "No, Helen, it happened to me too. She's not making it up." My parents, before they died, both of them uh, gave videotape testimony about their own abuse. My father was abused by one of the priests in Ireland, came over to England, was under his kind of control, as it were, as a young man. This priest decided who my father should date. My mother was selected because she was naive, had been educated in a boarding school, knew nothing about life. And so this priest continued his relationship with my father as adults. The second priest came into the story in England, eventually works with the first priest in his parish, um, and they become partners, if you like, in the abuse of our family. And so the second priest rapes my mother on a continual basis, telling her that if she doesn't give in, he'll tell her husband, my father, and that won't be good. My father will, end up killing the priest, whatever. Anyway, he took control of my mother's life, so he's raping her on a regular basis. He's abusing me. He's abusing my second oldest brother. The first priest abused my first oldest brother and my father and me. One of my earliest memories of abuse is with that first priest. So two priests. Eventually, out of seven people, six of us were victims. I thought my youngest brother was safe. He was 13 years younger than me, and I thought he was safe. Just in the last couple of years, he has confirmed that he had experience with one of the same two priests. And
You
the
know,
horror of that is just hard to just,
you
yeah,
know,
it's hard to take in. And it's
I
my
don't,
story. It's hard for me to believe.
I don't know how to feel about the word evil. I'm not sure about the word evil for myself.
Yeah.
But would you describe as a Christian, are these people evil?
I don't believe in evil as an external force. I
Mhm.
believe that evil is the result of choices individuals make in their lives. I believe people can become the expressions of
Mhm.
evil. They are acting in evil ways, they are creating evil.
Mhm.
I don't think of any sort of satanic force. That's a cop out. That's a cop out. Evil is what people do
Mhm.
to hurt other people. In my parents' generation, there were multiple, 5 to 9, 10 children. One way to get your child, especially if you were in the lower middle class, working class. My father's family was very poor. One way to pay for an education beyond the age of 13 was to send them into the seminary.
Mhm.
And so Catholic families would send at least one son into religious life just to help the family. Someone else would be feeding him, someone else would be educating him. He'd get a good education. He would actually end up, being successful and having income for the rest of his life. So it was a duty of Catholic families to at least give one child to the church, if not more. My parents left England and retired to Ireland the last decade of their life. They lived back in Ireland. Um, so I avoid that. Yeah. And I avoid living, I didn't want to live in England when we were raising our family because I felt like I couldn't keep my children safe from my own siblings um, and my father. So yeah, we didn't go back too
Mhm.
much at all. When I first started identifying and working through my abuse, horrible things happened to our family. Thank God we have the church to support us, in terms of spirituality, etc. And then, really, with the Boston crisis and the overwhelming coverage that was coming out in Boston about how the church hierarchy had been complicit in hiding these priests, protecting these priests, nurturing and offering them financial and spiritual and emotional support, and telling the victims to shut up and go away, and having to sign documents saying, if we're going to give you any help, you have to sign away your right to talk. When I realized it was systemic, I lost faith in the church
Mhm.
at the time, 1950s, that when a priest was ordained, he actually became a superior human being,
Mhm.
ontically different, not just human anymore, but above human, somewhere between human and divine. And in persona Christi, they became the presence of Christ, not just in the mass, but in the environment, in the culture. And so Catholics were raised on this magical thinking, and so a priest could do no wrong. And they would trust priests to take their children, to take them away on weekends or whatever. Oh, he's a priest, he's a man of God. He is, in a sense, God in person. Yeah, so that deeply embedded Irish Catholicism, yeah, allowed this to happen. And I think probably it's the same in other Catholic countries like Italy, whatever, but my experience is Irish. And in England, the roots of the problem were the Irish. Oh, they knew about them for years. They sent them from Ireland to England. Hello, goodbye. Go over there and don't worry. So, yeah. So members of their own order knew how despicable these people were. And, the tradition at the time, I hope it's changed, was that the bishops would send their priests to other bishops, say, look, he's fucked up. He's done some horrible things. Let's give him a fresh start. He won't do it again. Ha ha.
Uh,
So the chemistry in which, you become excited sexually is set up now in a particular pattern, and it has to do with arousal from children. And you can't change those arousal patterns. That's horrible. I feel bad for them. I do, actually. I feel bad for them. But not, yeah. And that's one of the big issues, in fact, in the church. When these priests are identified, or other religious, and they admit it, or there's enough, because one accusation is not enough, but you have two, you begin to wonder. But if you get to that point where, yeah, we think these priests are abusive, what do you do with them? You can't lock them up, but you don't want them around children. And so each religious order and each diocese has to come up with a plan to house these people so you know where they are, but to keep them away from children. And most priests' accommodation is in parishes with schools. I've come to understand that historically, the Catholic Church, in their doctrine, considered children above, like, I don't know, 13, uh, were sort of able to make decisions for themselves, that they, yeah, that was crazy. But, there were actual guidelines that suggested that early teenagers, could give assent totally fucked up. But one thing I've really come to understand and appreciate is the old boys club that exists in the Catholic Church. The priests took care of each other. The bishops took care of their priests. That was their first priority, was their priests. We describe them as shepherds of the flock, but really it wasn't about the everyday Catholics. It was about the priests, the brotherhood of the priesthood. And so many of them were carrying each other's secrets that in a sense, there was this underlying blackmail environment. Like, if you tell on me, I'll tell on you, you know. So there was the brotherhood, the old boys club, and then there was this level of, we're carrying each other's secrets. We have to be careful. And the protection of children just was not a priority. It was not a priority. And part of that was because it was felt that, as I said, young boys, because they tended to see it was just boys involved, young boys could give assent. That was crap. Psychology has taught us totally different. They also believed for decades that praying could heal them, and then later that psychology and spirituality could heal these priests. They didn't understand it as a disorder, an embedded disorder in someone's psyche. They thought it was something that could be healed through prayer and through some therapy, et cetera, et cetera. And so they would send these priests to these institutions and consider them cured. It was so short-sighted. Some of that was ignorance. Some of that was just a choice to be short-sighted. It's no longer an issue in the news media. So the church has gone into hiding again in some ways. I know that the Catholic Church hierarchy and their practice on a local diocesan level has become very, very 1950s. The only way I managed to maintain an image of God was through the faith of Jesus. The God that Jesus portrays to me through his metaphors is of a ridiculously loving parent. In the story, it's a father, but I see it parent, who doesn't seek justice or judgment over his son who has been very wayward, just wants him to come home. And that image of God for me makes the most sense, feels the most true. So if there is a God in any sense of something beyond the human realm, and I don't really know that I believe that, what I do believe is that Jesus had a good idea about, if we want to pray to some source of life, then make it a source of goodness, a source of truth, a source of comfort. So I guess Jesus has enabled me to keep hold of an idea of God. I had a conversation with my husband. We like to walk together, and that's often where we philosophize and whatever. And I said, now when I've been looking into, thinking through my story, I said, the Catholic Church has been the source of many blessings in my life. In fact, most of the blessings I have experienced have been through the Catholic Church. The people who have been most nurturing, most kind, the educators, my friends, my professional community with the Dominicans. I met my husband at college, Jesuit college, studying theology. That's where I met my husband. So the church gave me my husband in that sense. So the church has been a source of many, many blessings in my life. And I don't want to say otherwise. But the truth is two-sided. The church is also the source of most of the horrors and evil and suffering in my life. So it's balanced. I don't think people should, if people are struggling with the Catholic Church, I completely understand. But I would encourage them to claim those elements of their experience, those people that have been good, and to hold on to those and not let them go.
Thank you, Mona. That was really good.